I figured that maybe a couple, examples would give a good idea of like how you would make adjustments to your standard opening range. So we're looking at our default range on the left, which is 34% of hands. I think this is a pretty good loose range. Again, this isn't what we would open necessarily at every table, and that's the whole point of this video. So remember, we start with the default and then we make adjustments. So in this hand, we're starting off it's pretty early in the tournament, and Byron Caverman's the button, and Fedor Holz is the big blind. So if you follow the super high roller scene at all a little bit, you know that Byron's a very aggressive, good three betting player who really likes to, take advantage of position and really, punish people for opening a little bit too loose. And then, of course, Fedor is a very, very tough big blind who is not folding that much, if at all. And so this is a situation that's a very bad spot to open, regardless of who else is in the hand. Like this, it's gonna be very tough to get the hand through pre-flop when Fedor is just going to be defending everything, and it's also going to be tough just to even get to Fedor when someone like Byron is going to be three betting you quite a bit. So here we dropped off 12% of our hands, and that's a huge adjustment. Like this is the type of range that we were opening in early position at a standard table, but you just have to realize that these bottom hands like the king five suited or especially the ace five off type hands, they're just not going to be making very much money when you're playing against very tough players who are often knocking out of the hand pre-flop or playing you very well post-flop. So you really want to tighten up in these spots and just try to play a good solid range and just try to play well post-flop. And this is obviously not a great situation. Maybe we should have played a different tournament if these are the guys who are facing. But sometimes you just get a bad table draw and you just have to make adjustments. Now we're looking at the opposite situation. So same situation in the tournament in terms of the blinds and everything. And this time we have our good friend Alan Kessler, the most aggressive player out there, is the button, and Hoyt Corkins is the big blind. And so obviously some of you might be like, why Hoyt Corkins? So I just have a funny story. So the first time I ever played with Ivy was in the 10K pot limit a couple years ago, and I think Ivy had been doing bracelets bets and stuff, and it seemed like he hadn't slept in 3 days or whatever. He just showed up late regged, and he's playing pretty tight. It's pot limit. He opens onto the gun, and he has about 25 blinds, maybe 30 blinds, and Hoyt Corkins three bets in middle position. It folds back to Ivy, and he just like shakes his head, like peels up his cards so I can see them because I'm right next to him, and he goes, and he shows me it's ace queen off, and he's like, what the fuck are you supposed to do? That guy's practically dead over there. And I just started dying laughing because like Ivy said it loud enough that like the whole table could hear, but it's just like, yeah. So obviously, if Hoyt Corkins is at the table, we're not expecting him to VPIP too much, and obviously everyone knows Kessler's reputation as well. He's on the nittier side, so he's not going to be three betting you that much without premiums. So in this situation, this is a great spot to really open up your range. You're gonna get the steals through a bunch, and then you're also, if people are VPipping, they're gonna play kind of weak post flop as well, which is a great situation for you. So if you look at this range, we're adding 15%. So we're going almost the complete opposite way. We're opening over double what we would open if it was Byron and Fedor are the button and big blind. So yeah, I know this seems like kind of like the opposite of what I was saying earlier, where in the other video where I was like, you need to have a good theory. There's no justification just to like treat every MTT situation as a spot. But so it's kind of a balance. Like you really have to find the balance. There's a difference between opening 49% here and opening 100 here. And I think it's a subtle difference because people are like, oh, you're still trying to take advantage of the weak players behind. But there's a difference where you're still trying to make money with these opens. Like hands like the very bottom hands are really just not gonna. Even though these people aren't gonna VPIP enough, they're still gonna get dealt, like an okay hand some percentage of the time. And it's just gonna be really tough for you to make money with 10-2 off unless you can guarantee everyone folds behind you, which you can't guarantee when there's, people still get dealt cards, and then there's two other people in the hand as well, obviously. So I think this is a pretty reasonable range. You could maybe make an argument for opening a couple more of the suited jacks, maybe some of the like 9-7 off type hands, but I think this is a pretty good range, and there's still like hands that are gonna do fine post flop. So like if you do get flatted or anything, it's not too big of a deal. Definitely go ahead and three bet call versus Watts. He calls. Um, Very interesting board. I don't mind checking. As a like our range is quite interesting here. So we have some like wheel aces basically, as a lot of our bluffs pre-flop. We have ace king, we have ace queen, and we have kings plus obviously, and we have tens and jacks as well, and probably nines. So it's kind of an interesting board. I think bluffing is, or I mean, we're not bluffing with jacks, but bluffing with like ace king and some of these betting with some of these hands is totally fine. I think the wheel aces I would probably just give up, and he folds. I think checking jacks is fine as well. It's not like we're gonna be too worried. And the main thing is if he has a queen, he's probably gonna stack off either way. So I don't. It's just mostly about does he start bluffing with some hands, and like hands like ace ten and stuff are gonna have to either just call flop or get it on the flop. So it's pretty tough to come up with. Like he mostly just has wheel aces, I guess that would be folding, or pairs, small pairs. So maybe it's better to just check and start letting him bluff. But I think betting is fine too. I think either is fine. Watts defends. I think checking this hand is definitely good. C betting is obviously fine too, but I think this is a hand that plays well across a lot of turns and rivers. We want to be having some king X in our check back range, and this one does pretty well. It can't really go for three streets. So now we're gonna go ahead and bet the turn, and he folds. Open. It's it's definitely getting very near the bubble, but I think this open is a little bit too loose with two very good players in the blinds. I think my button opening was definitely getting a little bit out of line at this point of my life. At least it was like a year ago, so I don't think it's the worst in the world. But yeah, I think like Fabian's going to defend a lot, and even though I have position, I'm not a big fan. Definitely can see bet with some of the backdoor straight draws, but with no backdoor flush, I think I prefer to just check and bluff later. Betting once and then only barreling when we turn something is fine too. So I think either is fine. Yeah, and once we turn the straight draw, obviously we're gonna go ahead and bet turn and bet river.
I think check here on the flop.
Yeah.
What do you think on the turn here? You feeling like taking a stab?
I guess I don't mind it, but I probably do it with ace of clubs or jack of clubs more than I would with this combo.
That's not many hands though. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we have jack 10 suited, we have 10-9 suited. I don't know.
Well, I think I'd prefer ace jack over 10-9 suited. Because I think ace jack, you block ace queen, queen jack. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you got like good removal in terms of what calls. I don't think the flush is that relevant here. I don't think no one has a flush really. So I think blocking the queen is more important than blocking the flush.
Okay. Yeah.
So I always find these spots interesting. Because it's like when you raise, so if you raise from later position, I tend to like checking king, queen, and betting the lower kings. But when you raise from under the gun, I guess I still kind of like checking king, queen, and betting the lower ones because you could have king, jack, king, heart, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I do feel like this is a spot that gets under bluffed for three streets. Because if you're only going to use those hands for early position, you don't have that many, you know?
Yeah, and when you like think about the amount of flushes you have, if you're only betting like king of hearts, jack 3 times, you're probably like, I don't know, you definitely have a decent amount of flushes. Maybe not as much when the ace of hearts is out there, but if say it was like, I don't know, 10-7 or something, like you have all the ace high flushes, a lot of
certainly
queen high. The ace of hearts definitely reduces it a little.
That's a really good point, Pratt. Like the monotone flops for the opener are much worse if they're ace high than if they're like any other card high. That's a very good point. Whereas the big blind's going to defend like any suited hand basically, so it doesn't really matter.